Hey guys, welcome. Today we are going to look at the Ottoman Empire, period 4, 1450 to 1750. First, we'll review some things we already went over in class, and then we're going to get into some new material. So the focus of the PowerPoint and the presentation today is going to be on three major rulers. Number one, Osman, the founder. Then we're going to get into Mehmet II, the great conqueror. And finally, Suleman the Magnificent, also known as the lawgiver. First, we'll start off with Osman, the founder. So take a look at this video clip.
Contemporary accounts portrayed Osman as a man of the people, a down-to-earth leader. He dressed simply, ate with his men, and shoed his own horses. He ruled from the saddle.
Osman must have been a charismatic individual who combined that with a steady stream of military successes. And as the word spread that those who fought with Osman won, more and more people were attracted to his banner.
Some later accounts of this period by Muslim scholars suggest Osman's raiders were driven by a desire to spread Islam. But more recent studies indicate their motivation was more practical.
Attacking the infidels attracted many Turkish nomad horsemen, very often from among rival Turkish principalities who wanted to fight against the infidel, but also attacking and capturing rich Byzantine towns meant more booty and spoil that were distributed among the warriors.
Many of the early Ottomans were Christians. They joined Osman in a common endeavor.
By 1307, his fighting force, which began with less than 400 soldiers, numbered over 4,000. His followers became known as Osmanlis. Western languages translated the word as Ottomans. Osman's power grew not just from the force of his personality, but also from the belief in his divine right to lead. During the next 20 years, they plundered the surrounding countryside, expanding their territory at the expense of their rivals. Their attack was swift, but their treatment of the vanquished was fair. Unlike other conquering powers of the times, the Ottomans granted religious freedom to Christians in conquered territories. This policy would lay the foundation for the future success of the empire.
I think the most important point to keep in mind about the early Ottomans is that they judged people on what they had to contribute, not ethnicity, not race, not religion. Any of the markers we use today simply don't seem to have been very important.
By the time of his death in 1324, Osman had fathered an enduring dynasty. His son Orhan would build on that legacy, creating a powerful Muslim army that would soon be knocking on Europe's door.
After Osman, there were many other leaders who led the Ottomans and expanded their empire. But none would be as great as Mehmet II, known as the Conqueror. See, at this time, the sultans of the Ottomans had claimed the same powers of the Caliphate of the Abbasids. They claimed to be the protector of the Islamic faith, the strong sword of Islam. This gave them the justification to continue to expand their territory and rule over the people. When Mehmet II first came to power, he was 19 years old and needed to prove himself to the Janissaries that had been there for quite some time. One of the best ways to prove himself was to conquer the ultimate prize, and that would be Constantinople. Constantinople, if you look at the map, was already surrounded by Ottoman territory. They had conquered all the land around it. But there was this little thorn in their side, Constantinople, which was the ultimate imperial city of the Greek Orthodox Empire, the Byzantine Empire. And even the Prophet Muhammad had said conquering Constantinople would take a glorious army led by a superb commander. Mehmet II wanted to be that commander and believe that he was. In class, we already looked at how Mehmet II was able to conquer this city, Constantinople. Now we're going to take a look at the aftermath and how Mehmet II is going to go about building an empire. Take a look.
The conquest of Constantinople was a towering achievement for both the Ottoman Empire and its young Muslim Sultan, Mehmet the Conqueror.
Once he conquered the city on the 29th of May, 1453, something that had been the dream of Islamic rulers for 700 years, he got unbelievable prestige.
Mehmet's new capital took on a new name, Istanbul. He quickly set out to rebuild. He refortified the battered city walls, rebuilt the city skyline, and commissioned his own great mosque.
What he wanted to do was to make Ottoman Constantinople, Istanbul, into the rich and powerful city that it had once been, to protect the past, incorporate it into the present, and use it as a foundation for his own authority and power.
With a location that bridged continents and cultures, the city had prospered for centuries through trade. The new Sultan ordered construction of the legendary Grand Bazaar, still the largest covered street bazaar in the world.
The Ottomans stood across the major trade routes that connected Asia, China with Europe. The formal official standards were of toleration. Because the Ottomans adopted Islam as the official religion of the empire, they were bound to Islamic precepts. Islamic precepts said that Christians and Jews had received part of God's revelation. And because they had received that revelation, they were entitled to the respect of Muslims and to the protection of their religion by the Islamic State under whose rule they had fallen.
To fill government positions without relying on power-hungry aristocrats. For about 3 centuries, they practiced a policy in the Balkans they called devshirme, the gathering.
They really weren't supposed to go into these villages and select Christian boys on the basis of strength and intelligence and take them off to the imperial capital for training. They really weren't supposed to do that. But the brilliance of the system was that it did allow them to tap into a population pool. So compared to a European system at the time, where you had to be from aristocratic blood to become an aristocrat, to become a leader, the Ottoman system was far more flexible and was really quite remarkable in its dynamism and its willingness to open up recruitment channels in military and bureaucratic service to anybody.
For the Ottomans, ethnic identity and family background didn't matter. What mattered was being Muslim, speaking Turkish, devotion to the empire, and ability. The smartest devshirme recruits could and did rise to the pinnacle of power, Grand Vizier, the number 2 man after the Sultan.
Genie, grant me my first wish. I wish to rule on high as Sultan.
And the strongest recruits formed the core unit of the mighty Ottoman army, the Janissary. Modern Europe's first standing army, their record of early victories sent shivers of fear and admiration down the spines of enemy forces.
For a long time, they were the elite unit of the Ottoman army, loyal to the Sultan directly and to him only and mainly.
In 1465, the 33-year-old Sultan Mehmet II began work on the crown jewel of his new city, the extraordinary Topkapi Palace.
It was intended to be both a symbol of power, but also the actual place of power.
So you could picture in here, if the Sultan wanted to impress a foreign ambassador, you just enter through that noisy first court, you move into the second court, and he could have up to 10,000 people stationed here, ready. Just think about how that would strike you as a foreign ambassador, seeing 10,000 individuals in Ottoman outfits, seeing thousands of Janissaries stationed here, and you're marching all through these guards to that gate. When the sultans were in Bursa, they prayed with everyone else on the ground next to everyone else. When the Ottomans take Istanbul, take Constantinople, they elevate themselves above everyone else. That transition begins right here.
Here we are in the Topkapi Palace, and it's one of the rooms where the viziers would hang out to make decisions. And right behind me, you see a little opening. The emperor would be standing behind there listening to the viziers as they made their key decisions. Here we are inside the harem of the Ottoman Empire, the Topkapi Palace. And this right here is the courtyard of the Queen Mother, who did yield lots of power within these walls. So the only man that would be allowed in the harem would be the Sultan himself. The guards were black eunuchs, usually taken from Africa. Black eunuchs actually ended up with lots of power because they had the ear of the Sultan and they can get things done around the palace. They usually help the Queen Mother control things.
For 25 years, he waged war against the Christian territories, pushing the outer boundaries of the empire into Romania, Albania, and Bosnia, and dominated his enemies. His primary goal was to conquer Christian lands, then subdue them and tax them.
He pushed very hard. He's in some ways a kind of Napoleon-like figure. I mean, he very definitely is a dynamic and decisive military man who also has a lot of ideas that spill over in other respects.
After an extraordinary 30-year reign, Mehmet the Conqueror died of natural causes on May 3rd, 1481. He was 49. Taking the throne at age 26, he immediately launched his first military campaign.
Suleman took it upon himself immediately to establish his own reputation as a Ghazi, as a warrior for the faith. Suleman was able to establish himself as a commander with whom to be reckoned.
Suleman's army, led by the Janissaries, pushed deep into the heart of Europe. The city of Belgrade fell in August of 1521. The next year, Suleman's navy captured the island of Rhodes. Suleman kept on the attack. In 1526, his army first entered and sacked Hungarian capital of Buda. 3 years later, his troops pushed all the way to the gates of Vienna. The Ottomans were now a force in European affairs. To expand the empire further, Suleman knew he needed a stronger navy.
The Ottomans are engaged in a fundamental battle with Spain for control of the Mediterranean. So there is a major superpower battle going on throughout the 16th century for mastery of the Mediterranean.
In Istanbul, Suleman launched a cultural and architectural revival to match that of the European Renaissance. Topkapi Palace was refashioned into the grand style of a European king. The court adopted the ceremonial style of European royalty. He called on a janissary named Mimar Sinan to create mosques and public buildings throughout the empire. Over a 40-year period, he designed and built 79 mosques, 34 palaces, 19 tombs, and more than 60 other significant monuments and buildings. Suleman developed a legal system based on precedent and case law that was consistent with the sacred law of Islam. He also insisted that all new laws be compatible with Western Christian tradition.
Suleman is known as the lawgiver because he presided over an unprecedented codification of law.
8 years later, in 1566, the Ottoman Empire's greatest leader died in his sleep while on campaign in Hungary. He was 72. Suleman's 46-year reign saw dramatic advances in law and in art and architecture. He left behind an empire far more European than the one he inherited. But the infighting and intrigue that had plagued European monarchies would soon visit the palace of Suleman's successors. But most of all, the Ottoman Empire was enduring. From its beginning in the 14th century to its dissolution in the early 20th, it spanned the reigns of nearly 40 sultans and assembled one of the largest landmasses in history. And like all great empires, its legacy continues to shape our world today.